Thank you for joining me. If you just caught your teen fill in the blank, then you are in the right place. Today I'm going to cover what you can do with that moment all the way through to rebuilding trust and forgiveness and some consequences. This is a really big and scary issue for many parents. It doesn't matter what your fill in the blank is. And I want to support you through this. I know it's real. I know it happens. And it's hard, really hard for so many reasons. So today I want to cover a whole bunch of things that I can do to support you through that. I want to apologize for the delay. You guys, I've had unbelievable technical difficulties just getting on here this morning. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. My name is Allie Payne, and I'm a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach, and I work with parents and teens to help them end the painful disconnection. Believe it or not, parents actually want as much connection as their teens do with each other. But the communication and the way that they see the world and their perspectives are so different that it gets in the way and can cause a whole lot of pain and unnecessary arguments, conflict, and stress for everybody. So that's my job, is to help everyone kind of close that gap. I was that teen, and I'm a parent of teens, or young men now. So that is what I do. Today I want to talk to you about I just caught my teen, fill in the blank. All right, here's what I want to cover about that. First of all, there's the moment, that moment of shock, that moment of disbelief. It's painful. It's rage-inducing anger. It's hurtful. In whatever moment it is for you. I always say it's like taking your grandmother's walnut, like the walnut scraper hook thing, and like just stabbing it right in your heart. That is literally what this can feel like, and the shock and disbelief can be extremely difficult to be with. I want to let you know that all of your feelings are valid. All of your feelings are okay and real. What I want to say to you is, in all of that bucket of emotion that you probably have going on, if your teenager happened to be present when you caught them doing this or you found this out, you probably reacted emotionally, because that would be human and normal, and that's okay. And if your teenager is not present when you found out this information, whatever it is, I'm making today quite general, okay? Because I want to help as many parents as possible. So I'm not really going to talk about the actual situation or what you caught them with or doing. I'm talking about let's talk about the emotional process and the relationship and what you can do with that. I want to support you to feel all of the feelings and to process this emotion, because it's big, really big. So you may have blown up on your teen. You may have ripped a strip off them. You may have turned into a sobbing mess on the floor. That's okay too. It doesn't matter what range you experienced or what happened. It's all fine and good. What I hope for you is that you were able to rein in whatever came out with your teenager. Well, you are welcome here, my friend. You are welcome here. Whatever came out with your teenager, I'm hoping was as limited as possible, although that's not always doable, so that you have time, space, and permission for yourself to process a lot of these emotions away from your teenager. I'm not saying that the intention here is not to bubble wrap your teenager. It's not to not show your teenager emotion, because I don't think that is healthy either. I'm just saying the raw feed of that emotion, which you are entitled to and you have every right to, it is a great idea to process that away from your teenager in a lot of different ways. Okay? I want to encourage you to, whether you call a friend, Okay, someone who will just listen to your raw feed and not try and invalidate you, put fuel on your fire, because that's also not helpful, who will just listen to your raw feed of process and let you have it all. Swing out wide, my friend, swing out wide. Or maybe it's a family member, maybe it's your co-parent, maybe it's your partner, your spouse. I recommend a therapist or a counselor or something. This is really hard stuff to be with. Whether you found your child using pornography, you just found them with weed, you just got a call from the police, they got arrested for shoplifting. Whatever it is, this is not easy. And I'm pretty sure when you signed up for this whole parenting thing, this was not part of what you had in mind. So, I want to help you find a place to process that raw feed of emotion. I do not encourage you to do it with your teenager, because in the raw feed, what ends up happening is it becomes highly inflammatory and toxic, because your teenager is, well, they're having their own process, which they're entitled to, but it's just not constructive. So what I want you to do is process that emotion away from your teenager as much as possible. Whatever happened, it might be that there's a short period of time for you to process, and then for whatever time reason you have to jump back in. Maybe it's something that you caught them in that they don't know that you caught them in, so you've got more time to process some of this raw feed and then go to them. You know what? It's okay. It's okay. Please, like, no judgment, okay? I know you're doing the best that you can. There's few things that will rock your world more than this sweet child that you sacrifice so much for, that you love and would give your left arm for, finding out that they did something that is so far outside of what you believe is true and right in the way that you raised them, okay? So no judgment here, none. And even if you did give your teenager the raw feed, there's a way to go back to that. It's okay. Okay, I want to give you a place to encourage you to process outside. If you have processed some of this raw feed with your teenager, depending on how you found this incident arose, okay, you can go back to them and you can tell them, that was my raw feed. It probably didn't come out well. Probably didn't feel great for you. Didn't feel great for me either. Now that I've had time to process this, it's still really important that I share my feelings with you. Don't dehumanize yourself to your teenager at any point, like ever. That is not what I'm talking about doing, because that is what, if you've watched a couple of my IGTVs, that's what gets you a teenager who's mean and cruel and uncaring because they have no empathy, because you have not humanized yourself to them by expressing emotion. So when you go back to them and you can say, look, that was my raw feed, probably said some things that weren't really as appropriate as maybe I would have liked. What I want you to say is, this is how I feel. This is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. I'm really struggling with this. I'm not ready to talk about it more yet. Where are you at? You do need to ask your teenager about their feelings. You need to ask them, how are you feeling about this? Where are you at with this? What do you think about what I said? Like, if they got the raw feed, what did you think about some of the things that I said? How do you feel about what you heard me say? Let them have some airtime as well. And because remember, their brains, upper brain, emotional regulation and emotional impulse are not fully formed. You might be getting some of their raw feed. They just got caught doing something that they probably know was wrong, or were intentionally hiding from you because they didn't want you to know. So I can tell you that they're going to have their own version of a raw feed, okay? You're the adult. You are the parent. So you don't need to fully be present to their raw feed if it feels disrespectful or dangerous in any way for you. You don't need to be present to it. You can, it's still raw and how, yeah. Okay, awesome. So that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, we're going to talk about this. So if their raw feed is too much for you at that point, because I believe everyone deserves to have respect, a boundary of basic respect, then you can say to them, I love you and I want to have this relationship. What you're sharing with me now feels a little bit like your raw feed, and you're entitled to those emotions. You're entitled to feel that way. I just don't feel comfortable sitting and listening to it. So let's circle back. Okay. We're going to circle back when we can both be in the conversation about it. And I'm going to tell you right now, if this was super heated, you might need multiple attempts to come back, because each time you take a baby step into the conversation, you might find another landmine of emotion. And then you just go, okay, feels like we stepped on a bit of a landmine here. You sound like you got a lot of raw feed, or we hit a point. I need to put pause on this conversation. We're going to call a break again. And then you keep circling back and you keep circling back. Okay. The idea is sometimes it feels like eating an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So sometimes these circle back conversations are expecting they're going to happen in one go is unrealistic. Expecting they're going to happen like moments later when something pretty earth-shattering and world-shaking, it's not realistic. It's not realistic for anybody. Okay. So I want you to give yourself space, get help. Please normalize getting help to address heavy, big feelings like this. Normalize it. It is okay to not be okay with what happened, with the level of emotional mess and feeling and confusion of thoughts going on. That's okay, but you've got to go get help and you've got to normalize that. And you're a teenager, you might support them to get help. You can't make them go get help, because maybe they're just pissed at you. But you know why they're pissed at you, right? They're pissed at you because they got caught. Okay, but they still might need support to go and have their own person to go talk to, okay? Their own person to download their raw feed with, to gain perspective to something, okay? So I want to support you to do that. Now, when you are in that removed place, like the incident happened, but you can't really talk about it yet because it's still too heated, that's tough. And that's what you're talking about there, is that there's a withdrawal because of the level of raw emotion. That can be really hurtful. And it is a necessary conversation to stay in. And it sounds like I know that I'm withdrawn from our relationship right now. I know that I'm not as in as I was before. I'm really struggling with my feelings, you do not say, I'm really struggling with what you did. Please don't say you, it's very inflammatory, take it out. I'm really struggling with my feelings around what happened between us. I'm really struggling with, what I found, or I'm struggling with what happened, the incident, whatever. And I'm not ready to talk about it yet. I'm having a hard time with that. The thing is, teenagers will feel like, to the degree that you withdraw from the relationship and that you are not ready to process with them, they will feel like that is a power move. And it can be if it turns toxic. It's called stonewalling. Stonewalling is an intentional or unintentional removal from the relationship. I just simply vacate. It's like cutting off all the oxygen in a relationship. It can't breathe when you refuse to participate in it. So there's a difference between just completely withdrawing and like vacating the relationship, which is stonewalling. Okay, I don't recommend that. What I'm saying is to keep checking back in, having as much relationship as you can, even though you're hurt, and regularly checking in about the incident and the relationship and saying, look, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to be fully back in yet. I'm still really struggling with my emotions, with my level of hurt, my level of anger, etc. But then you need to take responsibility for how are you dealing with those. Because maybe you're just journaling them out and that really works for you. Awesome. But saying you're stuck with them but then not being prepared to ask for external help or go get a professional to help you process them, that's not fair to your teenager. Like, it's okay to be stuck, but doing nothing about that isn't fair either, because again, your teenager will see it as a power move. You're just lording that over my head. You're just doing this slight removal as a power move to say, out of contempt, which is another version of toxicity, to say what a crappy human I am and that you just can't be with what a crappy human. Like, these are the things that your teenager's making up, okay? Because they're already feeling like crap because they got caught doing something that they know they shouldn't do, right? All right. Now, as far as teenagers lying, I'm not going to get too much into that. Why teenagers lie, I wrote a whole article on that. I've done a whole IGTV on it. So you can check out my website, alipayne.com, blog, three reasons teens lie. Generally, it's to avoid judgment or criticism. Okay, it's to exercise freedom because their brains are wired for greater and greater levels of independent, critical thinking and decision making, even if you don't agree with that. And number 3, it's because they hold different values and different beliefs than you do. Just because you birthed or raised a child doesn't mean that they hold those same values and beliefs. And they're teenagers. They're wired for risk taking. So they're going to do experimental type decisions. Awesome. While they determine what their values are and what they believe in. And that means they're going to do stuff even they don't agree with. But they had to do it to figure that out. So I'm not going to tell you they're not going to make bad decisions, okay? Here's the thing. Most parents come to me with this issue. They found out their teen was doing something because the parent, you, were being a bit clandestine on how you found out. So this is a huge issue that I want to talk about. I think if you've watched any of my videos or read any of my articles, you'll understand I am not a fan of reading through your teenager's diary, their phone, going through their bedrooms, just because you can. Okay, so I understand if you're going to unfollow me, that's fine. You're welcome to disagree. There's a difference between going through your teenager's stuff because you can, which is a power move, okay? And then there's a negotiated agreement that says, I'm going to look through your phone every Sunday, or I'm going to go through your room every Saturday. That's negotiated, and I still am not a fan of it, but when your teenager knows, that's different, okay? And when they know, I strongly recommend that they are always present. You don't go like take it in your room like nighttime reading before bed, okay? I'm sorry, it will tank your relationship. That in order to have that work, you have your teenager present and you say, okay, it's Sunday. They just hide it better. Well, yeah, but here's the thing, you guys. Look, teenagers hide stuff anyway, but if they're hiding stuff, they're going to hide it from you anyway. You don't think that they can't like remove Snapchat off their phone on their way to on their way home, and then on the way to school they download Snapchat and put it back in there? Teenagers are going to hide stuff. But here's the thing. If you are going to insert deception into your relationship with your teenager, and that's what that is, you are now lying to your teenager by going through their stuff. That's an invasion of privacy because it's not transparent. Do you want your teenager going through your phone? Do you want your teenager rummaging through your room? I know you're like, well, that's different. I'm the parent. Is it different though? Is it? If you want your teenager to have conversations with you that are open, honest, and transparent, then you model open and honest transparency with your teenager. Because if you put deceit in your relationship with your teen and you're lying to them, that's what deceit is. Deceit is any version that is not the truth. So when you just sneak their phone and you start going through it and they don't know you're going through it, or you go through their bedroom and they don't know you're going through their bedroom, that's deceit. So if you are being deceitful in your relationship with your teenager, then it's okay for them to be deceitful because that's what you're modeling. I'm sorry if this is harsh. I'm sorry if you're going to unfollow and remove and whatever. I'm sorry. If you want to check your teenager's phone, if you want to check their bedroom and you have an agreement with them, okay, an agreement, they're probably not going to agree, but you say, look, on Sundays, we sit down together and we go through your phone. At least they know. And you are being open and transparent, even if they hate it. You are being transparent. You cannot have you cannot have trust without transparency. This is scientifically studied. This is not just me talking out hot air. It's one piece of plywood. One side is transparency, one side is trust. That is how it rolls. Okay? Now, if you agree that you're going to check through your teenager's phone regularly and you're going to go through their room, have them present. Have the respect to have them present when you do it. And here's why. Because then you can talk about. So tell me, like, what kind of stuff are you seeing? What kind of stuff do you like? What kind of videos do you like? What kind of things are your friends sending? What do you think is appropriate to send via a phone or text or social media or not? What do you think is like kind of off board or like, that's a little, like, find out. The minute you're not transparent and you're doing this all on the down low, okay, now you're not having effective conversations with your teenager about what's right and what's wrong, and you're not finding out for them what's right and what's wrong, but here's the other position this puts you in. What if you catch them doing something? You caught them doing something without them knowing, okay? So you checked their phone and you found something, or you checked their bedroom and you found something. Now, okay, let me have a caveat before you all go wild on me. If you have reason to do so, then you do it. If you have reason to do so, then you do it. But you have reason to do so, okay? What are your data points that say, okay, I got like 4 hardcore data points here that say there's something going wrong, and as a parent, I am responsible for your well-being and your safety, so I would still do it transparently. When they come home from school, you say, okay, look, this is hard for me. I have data point XYZ. I am concerned, and this is leading me to believe that there's something going on that I don't know about that isn't on the up and up. I'm going to ask for your phone. You're welcome to sit with me, and we're going to go through some things. And when we're finished, we're going to go to your room, and we're going to look through some things. Be transparent. They're still going to hate you. They're still not going to like it. But be transparent. You've got to be careful what you're modeling. Because here's what happens. When parents catch their teenagers doing something and they caught them doing it because they were going behind their teenager's back, now how do you reveal that? Yeah, so I guess you didn't know, but I've been going through your room every Wednesday. Oops, forgot to mention that. And I found this. Now, how do you bring it up? Now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because you caught them doing something, lying to you, okay? You caught them doing something, but you caught them because you were also lying. Where do you go with that? This is the hard thing. And again, if you have data and you have reason and real concern to go and check, then you do it. But do it with your teenager present. Okay? You don't give them warning, but you do it with your teenager present. And because then if you catch them doing something and you got to say, well, now I don't know what to do. I was in my teenager's room, and sometimes this just happens, okay? I was in my teenager's room gathering like plates and empty cups, because that happens, and cutlery and stuff, and I saw this thing on their desk. Like, I wasn't digging through anything, and I saw this, and now I don't know what to do. So that's a different situation. Your teenager's still going to be pissed. But it's a different situation, like you were just in their room getting dishes or whatever that you had asked them to clear and bring out to the kitchen, but they didn't. And then you found this thing, you found a vape charger, you found a vape pen, whatever on the floor. Okay, that's a different conversation, but you were still in their room when they didn't know you were going to be. So if you see them doing something, then that's okay. That's a data point. That's a data point. You can say, this is what I saw. I'm curious. Here's what I want you to say, no matter what you catch your teenager doing. Help me to understand. Help me to understand. Say that first and then be quiet. These are my data points, okay? Now, whether you've just checked their phone or you've just checked their room with them or not, whether you found anything or not, just because you have data points, does that make you right? This is why there's courts of law. This is why there's judges and trials. Just because you have a data point doesn't make it the truth. Is it hearsay? Or as mentioned here, did you actually see them doing something? So be careful. Check your data. Say to them, this is what I'm hearing. This is what I've seen. Help me to understand. Because you don't always know all the truth. You see it through a very different lens. You, like all other human brains, make up a lot of different stories, but they're not necessarily true. Okay? So, if you expect your teenager to be transparent, whether you decide you're going to regularly do spot checks on their phone in their room or not, or you're going to leave that, I don't know. But if you want your teenager to be transparent, then you better be transparent. Because if you're deceitful, they're going to be deceitful too. Okay? It's the whole point is setting up a construct so you can have open conversation, not to preach at them, but to understand what they are thinking and feeling about different situations and what they would do in different situations. And better yet, ask them, so what would you do if you were me? I'm the parent, and this is what has just happened. This is the values and what I believe in. What would you do if you were me? Ask them. Okay? All right. Okay, so consequences. 100%. There's got to be consequences. You decide what those consequences are and what feels right for you. Okay? However, remember that you don't want to increase feelings of isolation. So I'm not against taking phones, okay? If you need to take the phone, you take the phone. If you need to put restrictions on the phone, put restrictions. Use Bark. Use Bark Technologies. Our Pact is another one. Parenting 360 is another one. That's fine. Or just parent controls with iPhones you can use. I don't know if Android has it. Put those consequences in place and carry out those consequences, but you don't do it by carrying it out by shaming and blaming them. You do it by carrying it out through continued open conversation, okay? Here's the thing. Here's what you have to deal with, because I gotta have to wrap this in about 10 minutes. The pain and the hurt. So one of the things that keeps parents stuck in this slight removal of I can't be in relationship with you. I don't know how to be in relationship with you anymore, which is very real. It's very true, okay? Is that you get stuck in resentment. So here's what resentment is, and anger and pain. Resentment is you are not being the way or the person that I want you to be. Resentment is you are not being the person or the way that I need you to be. Okay? So you and I as parents, we've known these creatures since they came into the world for the most part. And so we have a pretty strong construct, a pretty strong story about who our teenager is. Then we catch them doing XYZ. And part of what happens for us and why we as parents get stuck is because we can't be with the information that says they are a person who would make that decision. They are a teenager who would do something that is totally against what we've talked about. So the denial, the pure denial of who I want my teenager to be and the construct of who I hold them to be and what happened, the truth of what happened, and the collision of those two is extremely challenging in the brain. And that is partly what keeps you stuck in the pain and the resentment, is I can't be with the fact that this is who you are. I can't. So acceptance of you are a teenager who will make a mistake. You are a teenager who would make a choice that I don't agree with. You are a teenager who would experiment with whatever. You aren't perfect. Maybe you are my beautiful child, teenager, who, like you as the parent, is imperfect. That can be really hard to be with, but that is what keeps you stuck, okay? So accepting the reality that your teenager is someone who makes mistakes, just as you do, that they are someone who might make these choices, okay? That's resentment. What I want also you to understand is that pain and that hurt is what can get stuck, is I'm so hurt. Okay, so let's talk about forgiveness. Forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past. When I say I can't forgive you, it's that, again, I'm stuck in, I can't be with the fact of what happened. I am in denial about what happened. I'm in denial about who you might be becoming. And so I can't forgive. When I'm not saying forget, okay? But forgiveness means I'm come to terms with the fact I can't change the past. You have come to terms with what happened. It happened. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to condone it. You don't have to like any of it, but you have come to terms with the fact that it happened. When you can't forgive, you are trying to undo the past. Now, I don't know about you, but I certainly can't make that I wasn't late to this Instagram Live for 10 minutes. I can't fix that anymore. It's already done. That's 30 minutes ago. I cannot change that I was late to today. Today, I was unreliable. Sometimes I'm a person who's unreliable. And I'm sorry for that. And I can never tell you that I won't do it again. Because for whatever reason, in my control, out of my control, I will probably be unreliable again. So it's probably important that you know that about me. So your forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past. You cannot change the past. Okay? Number 3 is trust. Well, now that this has happened, I can never trust my teenager again. I just can't trust them again. Okay? I actually did some research on this. Trust is not earned. I understand that is probably how you were raised. That's how I was raised. Oh, I'm just going to be over here being perfect while you be over there trying to fix all of your flaws before I can trust you. Ha! I'll just be here waiting. Yeah, that's contempt. It's contemptuous. It is unrealistic, even though it feels safe. Because I am going to tell you right now, without trying to get emotional, but I probably am. There is nothing more courageous and vulnerable as a parent than having your trust broken and having to come back in the game with your teenager knowing that they are a person who's going to lie because they did. They are a person who's going to experiment in ways you wish they didn't. They're going to do things that you wish that they didn't. That some things they can't undo. Maybe they're going to have a criminal record now. You can't undo that. Maybe there's been significant damage. You can't undo that either. It takes raw courage from a parent heart that already feels like it got beat up by a meat tenderizer, to put it back out there and stay in the game. Stay in the game with your teenager. Trust is not earned. Trust is given. In order to trust your teenager, you might need to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for being a parent of a teenager who isn't perfect. Forgive yourself for whatever you have yourself on the hook for. That you didn't parent them the right way, you didn't say the right thing, if you had just spent more time with them, if you had just been more open in conversation, if you had just been whatever, like fill in the blank. Maybe forgiving your teenager means that you might need to forgive yourself first. Because coming back to the relationship after your teenager broke your trust with 100 times more parental controls, lockdown, quarantines, that's not forgiveness, and that's not rebuilding trust. That is instilling a version of absolute authority with the attempt to control, which you cannot do, to keep your heart safe from having to feel vulnerable again. Dr. Brené Brown talks about this. You cannot have trust without vulnerability, and vulnerability takes courage. Trust is given. And in order to trust, to give trust, you have to trust yourself first, which goes back to boundaries. Do you have effective boundaries in place that feel safe for you to be in relationship with your teenager? Knowing they're imperfect, and so are you. Because I totally am, so welcome to my club. And I do not have a hold on it. There's a lot more people in this imperfect parenting club than what you might think, so come on, it's actually pretty cool. Okay? In order for you to fully trust, it's not about your teenager becoming perfect. It's not about the past getting changed. It's not about them all of a sudden being who you need them to be. It's about you deciding to be in relationship with them, even though it hurts and it's scary and you might get hurt again. And you set boundaries to do what you can for them to clearly understand what works for you and what doesn't. And you also need to understand that boundaries were never intended to control, and they don't. They don't control. So I know today I have not talked about, yes, perfectly imperfect. Thank you. It hurts too much for this highly sensitive person. I'm so sorry. And I hope that you seek professional help. Get a coach, book a session with me, find a therapist, find a counselor. It hurts a lot. And I see you and I hear you. And yes, it is real. And it's part of the parenting game. And I want you to get back in the game with your teenager because they need you. They're waiting at the fence, hurt, uncertain, and they just want you to get in the game with them, as messy and awful as that's going to look. So trust is given, and this has a lot to do with you trusting you with boundaries. Set boundaries, make them very clear, and remember, boundaries do not control. They were never intended that way. The only way to do this is through conversation with your teenager. Continue to be an open conversation. Share what your values and beliefs are around a lot of stuff. Why? Tell them why you believe what you believe. Did something happen? Where did that come from? And then listen to them. What do they believe in? What's true for them? What feels right for them on social media and not? What feels right for them in friend groups and not? Help them develop their own boundaries because they're developing their own decision-making skills anyway, so you may as well be part of it. And you're going to be part of it when they get it wrong. And that's going to be hard. Okay? The last thing I want to say is, depending on what your fill in the blank is, okay? It could be marijuana, it could be pornography, it could be whatever. Shoplifting, stealing, whatever it is, stay in the conversation. Help them to understand. So I'm going to use pornography as an example. What happens for a lot of parents is they're like, we're going to shut that down right now. That is not happening, not in this house, whatever. And what ends up happening is a whole lot of shaming instead of equipping and empowering. So first of all, pornography, the drive to pornography is not wrong. It is a part of their sexual development, their drive to sexuality, their curiosity about sexuality, and how things feel in their bodies, and that's all normal and good and right. It's how they were created. Then you can talk about what they did or what they're doing about it, And then you can talk about pornography separate from, it's the what you do about it. Why they did it is all good and right. Normalize that, what they did about it. Okay, so what it is about pornography. You can talk about some of the studies about what happens in the brain, things that impact pornography, culturally, lots of other things through conversation. But when you just come at whatever happened, as hard as this is, with just the gauntlet, you're going to shut that down right now. That's never happening again. That is not coming from a place where your teenager's likely to learn anything about you, let alone learn anything about themselves. It comes from a place where you expect perfection in a world where we're not perfect. In a world where we're just dying to have somebody say to us, I love you anyway. I don't love what you did. I don't love your behavior. I love you. And this is hard for me. And this hurts. And I'm going to stay in the game because I love you. And I'm not going to do it right. And I know you're not going to do it right. But let's do it not right together. Let's figure it out. Because when we go to a place of shaming our teenagers, shaming them for what they have done, which was maybe very wrong, really not good. When we shame them, what they have learned is that they are wrong. They are a failure. They should go and hide. They should shrink from the world. They should take up less space. They should breathe less oxygen. They should be ashamed of who they are, and they're not learning the lesson about what they did. That might have been how you were raised. It's how I was raised. And science is proving that doesn't create the people that you know your teenager is. That incredible potential that you know who your teenager is, parenting or consequencing that way is not teaching them anything. All right, I'm going to wrap this. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have more questions, please hit the link in my bio and then hit the community button. That is my free Facebook group where you can talk about this kind of stuff. It is a safe, non-judgmental, I have no room for error in that, space for you to share and talk about that. If you would like more than that, I have a membership community, a private Facebook community where I go live and actually discuss this kind of thing with you. And if you want one-on-one assistance, you can book a session with me and I will absolutely walk you through this. I will hear you. I will validate you because what's going on is hard and you don't need to do it alone. All right, I want to thank you all for joining me today. This will be posted on my feed. Please feel free to share it with other parents. Share it to your stories so that it can help other parents to know that they also are not alone in this incredibly difficult thing called parenting. All right, everybody. Mwah. Be well. I will see you next week.